We have a quorum. It's 9:02. This is the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting for February. So, Phil, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, Mike is going to lead us off.
Okay. Hey, Richard.
Hey, good morning, Richard. All right, not a whole lot to report. Just a pretty quiet month, other than the snow and ice. It's been relatively quiet, just routine maintenance going on around the facility. One major update I have is from last year's capital budget with the HVAC at the middle school. I've given up on using Modern Mechanical. They've run me around for 3 months now. I called Mulvaney Mechanical end of last week. I had them here on Wednesday to do an initial viewing of the air handlers, and I have them coming back on 17th and 18th next week when we have no kids, along with our building management system. So the analysis has begun. Should have a material list, labor cost as to how we can move forward, if we're going to move forward and try to get another 10, 15 years of life out of these units.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I really have I have nothing to report unless there's any other questions. It's been, like I said, it's been relatively quiet.
When do you start having to get the fields ready for spring?
Yeah, it's usually somewhere, depending on weather. It could be late February, it could be early March.
Okay.
Need a little bit of drying time. Everything's a little sloppy at this point because we had pretty much frozen glaciers everywhere. But it's all weather conducive. But as soon as we can get out there, we get out there.
Anything special we have to do at Refson this year?
Anything special at Refson? I believe we have clay to grade out in the infield of the varsity field.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's the end over there.
Okay.
It was put to bed in pretty good shape, so it should come back relatively quickly.
Okay. One question I have is, and I think this is something to start thinking about from a facilities perspective and a health and safety perspective, is that if basically we go to February 28th and post February 28th, we have mass choice. What is, if anything, we need to do from a facilities and health and safety perspective that's different or enhanced versus what we're doing now? And I think it's not something you have to necessarily answer today, but I think it's something that we have to add to the list of things that we have to consider as we head into that March date.
Sounds good.
Tony, if you just think about all the mitigating strategies that we have had in place, even just from the onset of COVID, so mask on or not, it does not change all that we have been doing and we will continue to do. So just from a cursory, just thinking about it, there's not a new strategy that we would implement or anything that we would change once we get to that point, because we have been practicing all the mitigating strategies since day one.
Mm-hmm.
For our meeting on Tuesday night, depending on how the public comment goes, we may want to consider being prepared to speak to ventilation and those sort of concerns.
Sure.
Just what we're doing and how confident we are.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's something that we should bring up during that agenda item, definitely.
Okay, I will. We'll definitely be prepared for that.
Anything else?
I have nothing else.
Okay. Next agenda item is facilities optimization, I believe. I don't have that. I lost it. Is that right?
That is correct.
I just lost the agenda.
Yeah, that's the update on that.
I lost that tab. Update is that I think Tecton continues to work with the administration, and at the next facilities optimization committee, there will be a couple of broad options that are going to be put on the table. And I think it goes from, and I think it goes from renovating the existing schools to I think one option, which I think will be very interesting option, which will include not necessarily renovating the middle school, but building a new middle school where Refson is potentially, and creating a space there with fields and sort of a sports space with the pool and fields there where the middle school is, which is I think very interesting option as well. So there, I think that it goes from simplest option, but hardest to actually, simplest options, renovate all the four school, renovate actually mostly, the middle school in Hurlbut, but that is sort of the most straightforward, but the hardest to accomplish because there's not a lot of swing space during construction versus moving to the other option which involves doing constructions of a new entity, right? And during that construction, the students could actually stay in place in the old entity, which is the more expensive option, but the one that is easier to actually accomplish with the least amount of disruption, right? So I think the series of high-level options kind of will be brought to the Facilities Optimization Committee to discuss. Each one of them will have a broad price tag associated with them. Then we will probably discuss it as a board and get a view on it as a board, and then potentially discuss it at the next community forum, which is on March 2nd. So, I don't know, Lisa. I think Tecton, I think it's all kind of coming together a little bit to have some very clear options on the table, price tags associated with them, and then the pros and cons associated with each of the options. I think there's like four options that will be on the table.
Tony, is the timing the same for all four options? I mean, obviously builds will take longer depending on which option is selected, but are they all kind of slated to start around the same time? Or
I think so. I think that obviously the renovate option, and I don't know, Richard, you jump in, but we really haven't discussed this in the Facilities Optimization Committee, but the renovate option will actually have to be done piecemeal, and that probably has a longer tail than anything you build is new. But I think the start times would probably be the same. It's just that the end times would probably be different with different outcomes in each one of them. Lisa, I don't know if you have any thoughts on how all of that is going.
Sorry, and sorry I was late.
That's all right. We were just talking about some of the work the Facilities
Yeah.
Optimization Committee is.
Yeah, and I didn't get to the meeting yesterday, and I apologize for that. I was going to touch base with Jeff later because we had talked a little bit with the district leadership team. I do think that certain things are kind of crystallizing, with the different options, choices, which I think is exciting. And, we just have to keep moving along.
Yeah.
I think that from the district perspective, the people that have been involved in different focus groups and discussions and sharing ideas, I think that was important that they be heard. There's a lot of interesting possibilities when all is said and done. When I think, I was thinking about this the other day. I thought, well, in 20 years, God willing, if I'm able to drive down Weston Road when I'm 80, it'd be interesting. I'm going to be wondering, well, I remember this and I remember that. but there's still also a lot of unknowns, quite frankly. We're talking about a lot of money
Yeah, I
and
think that's,
real financial, there are a lot of financial considerations to the taxpayers. So
yeah, I think that's really it. With with an infinite amount of money, you can do just about anything. But that's not what we have, right?
Well, exactly. Someone said to me, well, what would you do with another $1 million for the school budget? I said, that's kind of an unrealistic question. I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't just go out and hire a bunch of staff that we have to sustain for the next 5 years. I wouldn't necessarily pour money into a particular facility without knowing. I think that as you said, there's a real responsibility of what's the best return on investment here. But at the same time, it is exciting. When you
Yeah.
look at maps and you think of moving things around and everything like that, I'm excited by the possibilities.
So I guess the next step is facilities optimization committee will take a shot at it. It will, I think we need to have just a board update on it, and the next public forum. And then we'll kind of go from there. But I think the price, obviously the price tag is going to be a big consideration on all of these.
Can you tell us, Tony, I thought there were some grants associated with some of these potential projects. Is that not the case?
I think that there's a reimbursement rate for renovate as new and build new as new, but there might be some grants for some of it. I mean, some parts of it, depending on how you do it, and whether it's green or sustainable or whatever. I mean, I think that there are certain grants that probably you can tack on to certain parts of the project, but I think that you're really kind of relying the bulk of it is the state reimbursement. So I don't think there's anything significant. I think the grants are small potatoes versus the entire cost.
Tony, in your discussions with Tecton, they realize there's a leaching field under Revson.
Yes, they do. They
Okay.
do. They see. Yeah, they see. Yeah, they realize that there's also some sort of there's a stream there, right? That is between right? Is it? I'm not sure exactly where they pointed it out, but yeah, no, they're aware of all of the they're aware of the constraints there. Yeah,
Sorry,
there
I didn't
isn't.
hear.
Yeah, there isn't a
There
lot.
is a stream.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a stream. I remember Rick Bertassi talking a lot about that. Didn't they also say there was like a pool over there that had been filled in? There's water under there. There's a stream. They seem to know a lot about that. I didn't even realize all that.
Richard, what's under Revson? Was there a pool?
If I understand it correctly, and older residents would know better than I do, I believe it was a wetland that was filled in.
Yeah.
That entire area. So you're going to end up with a very obviously you won't be going down.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
It's just as you mentioned, it's one of the areas to discuss.
One of the areas discussions. Yeah. No, absolutely. The feel there has never been ideal, right? So.
No, it's wet.
It's wet and
It doesn't drain that well.
amongst other things. All right. Any other questions? There's a lot more to come on this topic, but this was just a short update, maybe. Want to move on to finance?
Okay, I will leave you.
Richard, anything on your side?
No, I don't know that we've met as a committee, optimization committee, since you had your last
Yeah.
school board meeting.
Yep. Anything on the building committee side that we should know about?
No, the building committee has not met in several months. So,
Oh, really? Okay. Quiet. Nothing going on.
well, yeah, it's up to the town to include us in any discussions that that they have regarding new construction.
Well, you're always welcome here.
Yeah. Just a question for Mike, because I was at the library. This is just a facilities issue. So apparently the water line for the library comes through Hurlbut?
Yeah, the water main for the library comes through the East House tunnels. So
Oh,
the main
okay.
comes through the building, and it had froze and the pipe fractured. So that's why the water was off there. It's an 1.25 inch main. It's all been insulated. Everything's been changed. It just was right at the point of a fresh air take for the tunnel system. So we covered that up, insulated the pipe, so we won't have that issue. We've never had that issue in as long as I can remember. I've been here since 2011. It's never happened. But yeah, the water main comes through the East House for the library. Also, the water comes through the South House tunnel system to go to the police department, fire department too. So all those mains come that way from the pump house.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Well, take care.
Thanks a lot, Richard.
Right. So financial update. So we, as of the end of January, January, we are projected to surplus. We continue to make adjustment to the projected balance for the end of the year. Things are, as usual, with time, things become a little bit clearer, and you can definitely identify certain trends as it relates to operations and the finances. So we have added approximately $130,000 to the projected balance. And the big number there has to do with its salaries and benefits. We've made some significant adjustment to the anticipated spend for our bus aides, for our homeborn tutors, and we have made a slight adjustment for turnover and vacancy. So if salary adjustment is $148,000, we're continuing to monitor the trend for health insurance. And again, just with the census change, we have reduced the encumbrance for the remainder of the year for approximately $80,000. We did see a slight increase, or maybe a significant increase, on the utility side. We have a lot of usage. We're getting back to normal now. We're seeing a lot of usage at the high school, and pretty much the usage increase is pretty significant. We have also seen less of a reimbursement, solar credit reimbursement, year over year. And I think the only thing I can really attribute to that is pretty much last year we did not have a great summer. So during our peak generation period, so to speak, we pretty much saw a lot of overcast. We were pretty much overcast for most of that time. So we're hoping that this year will be better, and that our generation will significantly increase for the peak period, which would help to offset the cost for overall.
Whoops.
So that is pretty much it in a nutshell for the financial update. Internal Services Fund, dental claims are trending the way we expect, and we really expect them to trend. So we're in a good place where that is concerned.
Phil, can you go through some detail on the salary and benefit line we see there's a lot of ins here. So maybe you can go through the individual items you have in the summary here.
Sure.
And maybe explain them a little bit in a little bit more detail.
Yeah. So for our budget for the bus age, so we've made a shift, and I think a lot of the salaries that we had here in terms of what I budgeted was kind of carrying the assumption based on how we operated in the past, where we were providing that service ourselves. We do not need as many bus aides internally as what we had in the past. In addition to that, well, we can't find the bus aides, so a lot of the bus aides that we have, they're being provided by the transportation company. So the cost for the bus aides, you're seeing that reflected more in the transportation costs and not in the bus aid lines.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, we're reducing the bus aid lines. Same thing for homeborn tutors. We are providing homeborn services, and by that, we're talking about services for students that are in the hospitals. But we're not using our staff to do that. We're using an outside provider. So we're seeing that cost show up in the tuition line. So all of these things, we're pretty much just truing up to how we're currently operating, and that's where we're able to make these adjustments. For the vacancies and the turnover, we did have some turnovers in the secretary line, and we had some turnover, just overall turnover. So we were holding them before to pretty much offset costs in the anticipated columns. But I think at this point, I'm fairly confident to release that because I do believe over time we may see other positive variants that will help to offset any negative variants that we have overall. And those really were the main drivers for in the salary line. You muted, Tony.
How about the benefit line?
Census. So we did not.
Okay.
So yeah, this is really census driven. So we did not last month. We did not adjust encumbrance for the remainder of the year. I mean, listen, this year has been a doozy. So just to add some color to that, typically our typical average for benefits in our health insurance is about a 330 or so contract, so to speak. This year, we're down to about 313. The vacancies that we have had and just the different stuff that we have had it's been very atypical. So that's why we're seeing the significant adjustment in the benefits line.
What? I'm sorry. You said vacancies?
Yeah, so we have just a lot of staff movements, right? So we had people coming out who had benefits. People coming in are not necessarily taking those benefits.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so you do have that kind of spell. So we have subs and everything else. So the subs are not taking it, and even people coming in are not taking it. So we do have some movements coming in, and we do have some changes coming that we anticipate.
Because they're covered by another plan.
That is correct. So they may be on their spouse plan.
Right.
So this is why we always try to emphasize how important it is necessarily to kind of build in some kind of reserve, because if there's a change on the spouse's plan or on other dependent coverage, those individuals will probably come into our plan. So that's why we always try to hold somewhat of a reserve just to build that contingency, just in case there's any life change event.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think we spoke about the negative for diesel and for electric. So we did not lock in a contract for this year, unfortunately. I think the hope was that it was a little bit volatile when our contract ended, and we were kind of waiting for it to stabilize somewhat. We were hoping that it would stabilize. That did not happen. So we did not lock in a price for that. So we're currently paying the market rate for our diesel and gasoline. The town did put out an RFP for FY23. That should be coming in any day now. We're also tuned in to a statewide education consortium, municipal consortium as well, just to see if there's any benefit in maybe going to the consortium if their pricing is better for that.
Okay. Any other questions? I have one. Do we know? I guess it's too early to know what the insurance premiums are for next year, right?
Yeah, I was going to actually give that update when we just talk about overall budget, but we can transition into that if you would like.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two things actually. That, and let's just keep track of the overage and see exactly how it's going to develop, because right now we have a surplus. Let's see how that's going to develop in the next month or two.
Absolutely.
And then make decisions about what we do about it.
Yeah, I mean, as it relates to the surplus and how and what we do with it, I mean, the initial thought is to use it really as a mitigating tool for the budget for next year. In terms of a lot of single items that we have, right? I mean, we really, I mean, our budget is really lean. We don't have a lot of new requests outside of technology, and the plan for technology is that we're going to be leasing. So there's not a lot of benefits, so to speak, to doing that, unless we have a significant surplus where we can purchase all those equipment and not lease them. But
Mhm.
outside of that, we do have a big request in textbooks.
Right.
So the one-off expenditure that we have is $83,000. So one thing that I would recommend is that we pre-purchase our textbooks, just to help to mitigate the budget for next year. At the
Sure.
meeting that we had with the Board of Selectmen a few days ago, there was a recommendation that we shift the cost for our duct cleaning to the operating budget. So after we've paid for our textbooks, and if we do have enough of a surplus, we could mitigate some of that cost on the capital side as well.
Can can we do some of the cleaning this year? Can we start some of the cleaning this year?
Well, what we have done for the cleaning is that we are working on an RFP,
Right.
just to get some firm prices. The difficulty where that is going to come in, Tony, is that we probably will not have a window, Mike, a window that's long enough to have the company come in to do the cleaning. We could try to do some of that, but the outside of doing that,
Mhm.
we would, because of
Yeah.
our funding and how the funding is set up, if we can have the cleaning done within a month or so, or in short order after the year end, we can encumber those funds in our
Yeah.
fiscal year and then do that work. So it is a possibility that we can do it. Once we get the pricing in and we work with the vendor in terms of the time frame, I definitely think that we can definitely encumber the money in our budget for this year and then lay it out. So I
Right.
think the Board of
Right.
Finance, we
Right.
have done it in the past where we've encumbered the funds and then just spend it out as a continuing appropriation.
So this will be an actual discussion with the Board of Finance. I think so how did we actually leave it with duct cleaning? I mean, is it is it and then the Board of Selectmen made a recommendation, right, of running it through the operating budget, but the 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 from a technical perspective, where does it really belong?
From a technical perspective, if you think about what it is in terms of the true of if it's a maintenance item, it
Yeah.
technically is a maintenance item, right? Because we're
Right.
really not, it's not necessarily an improvement
Right.
onto our structure, right? So a strong argument can be made that it's more of an operating cost. But as I mentioned in the Board of Selectmen, one of the main drivers and the main reason why it was put on our capital budget and not in the operating budget was just the sheer cost of
Right.
the particular item. And typically, when we do have large requests, we typically do put those items on the capital budget.
Mhm.
So I think we're in line with how we've historically done that. So from a process time perspective, I think the process has been the same. We have not
Right.
changed that, so that's why we put it on the capital budget.
All right.
Um,
So we are, so it's still, now what you're saying to me is that you're working on ways of seeing how we can actually, working on different options to see how we can actually include it in the operating budget. Potentially for this year, potentially to do it in conjunction. If we have to do it next year, do it in conjunction with using the internal services fund for dental. There's a bunch of possibilities when we get to the Board of Finance.
yeah, it's so all right. So that's the duct cleaning aspect. So
Okay.
let's shift to the medical.
Uh,
Let's finish up. Let's finish.
Let's finish up duct cleaning. And then so let's say that regardless of how we do it next year, right, it turns into an operating item that occurs every 3 years, right? This is my worry. My worry is that when the 3 years come up, when that third year comes up, nobody wants to actually spend the extra 250,000 because our budget's tight and they defer it another year, which,
So
I can't tell you how many times things like this happen, right?
correct.
And so is there any way that from a proper accounting, I think, is there any way that you can accrue each year so that you don't have this lumpiness in every 3 years?
Yeah, I think our goal once we get by the reset,
Right.
right? the goal is that the plan is that within the next 2 years or so, that we would start on an annual basis to address one school.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
So
you would basically rotate the schools.
correct.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So this way, and in any given year, you're not going to be slammed with
Right.
this. I mean, similar to the leasing plan that we have, it will just become a part of your operating budget, and you will just continue on.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I worry about these kind of lumpy items
Yeah.
that we tend to then defer until it becomes a problem.
Correct, and it's very easy to defer those items once you're facing with a tight budget.
Right. Okay.
All right, so let's move to the discuss. You want to shift to health insurance?
Sure.
Okay, so it's things. So a few weeks ago, I'd mentioned that we have gotten a rosy picture from the state in terms of.
Give us the bad news first.
No. I have to tell the
Happy
story.
Happy Valentine's Day. Yeah, you and your rose.
Too early for a story.
So the bottom line is that we got an early indication from the state just after the board voted.
Right.
It's not necessarily horrible, right? Our budget is at 6.5. We projected at 6.5. Initially, we were going to go in at 8,
Right.
but with the rosy picture that was painted, we reduced that to a 6.5.
Right.
So their early look is that it's going to be an 8%.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
They're
and
really
when that-
managing it well, aren't they?
Yeah, when that news came about, I think all the business managers went berserk because everyone is saying that in your past 2 communications to us, you were saying that things are looking good, your claims experience are good, your loss ratio is not as great. You've done all these things and things are looking good. We're managing it well, and in addition to that, we have $40 million that we just received. So we're going to use that $40 million to help to mitigate premium increases for the new year. That was not the case, and it's not good. It's not good. So they're saying to us that without that $40 million that they had, the increase would be more in the range of 12%. Right. So after I got that, I was like, "There's no way if they're going to continue to be given double-digit increases, we cannot remain on the state partnership plan. It's
No.
just we just can't."
Right.
So I think we're at the point now where we have to start thinking about really what the decision is going to be, right? So there's a lot of discussions about should we go to self-insured? Should we go to the fully insured plan? I spoke with our broker or with our consultant. So the self-insured plan really it's long-term, right? And just like with everything else that we do, if we go to a self-funded model, we have to be committed to it. Like we can't shift to it, take the savings from it, and then when we have good years, we're happy. But when we have a bad year, we jump off, because when we do that, you don't really see the benefit of being self-insured. In addition to that, for us to shift to that, the reserve that they would probably recommend is going to be significant, right? And I don't think we necessarily want to do that. So there's a few options that's on the table in terms of the fully funded plan, and even just being a part of the overall partisan block,
Right.
because the goal of most of Fairfield County moving on to the state partnership plan really was just to get those economies right. You're now a part of a larger group, so you definitely hope that by being a part of a larger group, that you will definitely see those efficiencies. The state said that they had them. However, I think the claims is just because it's such a rich plan, the claims are just not helping. The claims are not mitigating the savings. The savings are not helping to mitigate the claims experience.
Listen, yes, but also their return assumptions on their portfolio were completely unrealistic, given the fact that we have a zero interest rate environment.
Correct.
So their hurdle rates were just way high
Yeah, it
versus
was.
the interest rate environment we're seeing, which was never going to work.
Yep. So I think knowing that we're entering negotiation season, I
Yeah.
think we're going to start to have I'm going to just invite at one of our meetings just to have our consultant just to come in just to talk about various options that we could have, just so that we can all be educated on what's available. But from a budget perspective, if that 8% is a final 8%, the impact to the budget is going to be in the range of about $120,000.
Right.
It's not horrible, but at the same time, we have to find that. So if we mitigate some of our operating costs by any surplus that we have, we would either be better or pretty much be neutral.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of moving parts here.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
And as we get closer, because Board of Finance is next month.
Right.
So we have roughly, we'll get 3 weeks more of information and work, and we'll be able to at least have the various ways in which we can actually move things, right? When we
Correct.
start talking to the Board of Finance.
Yeah. So our first meeting with them is going to be on the 7th, so almost a month out.
Right.
And then we have maybe a meeting on the 15th. I'm hoping that by then things will be a little bit better. I do have to say that I tend to be a little bit conservative in terms of our projection, and I may have to change it a little bit, because
Mhm.
I don't want it to put us in a situation where I get very aggressive with the projection and then have to dial that back.
Yeah.
But I'll have to find a middle ground, and I think by the time we get to the 7th or the 15th, things will hopefully be a little bit clearer.
Okay.
So that pretty much sums it up. We just, as you said, Tony, it's just a lot of moving pieces, and we just have a few more weeks just to get things together. I'm not quite sure how long we will definitely have. I know from the calendar, we have the 7th, the 15th, and then the Board of Finance will deliberate on the 31st.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure in terms of when, because I think before we present anything to the Board of Finance, I'm not quite sure if we vote on those and that before.
I think we, I think we have to present to the Board of Finance on the budget that was approved, right?
Yes.
Then I think that whatever changes you think are going to be material that you know of or that you anticipate are going to be changes, we'll bring that up. And then once we have a better idea, I don't want to go back to the entire board more than once to kind of say, okay, these are the ins and outs now.
Okay.
We have to approve a new budget. Let's try to minimize the amount of times we have to go back to the board. We can.
Right. So based on that, Tony, I think that probably will not happen until after the Board of Finance actually makes a final decision in terms of.
I think that, I think, the earliest we can, our March meeting, potentially, if there's things that that we need to actually, for certain that are going to have to be changed, right? But then that's the only real. That's one opportunity. And then after the Board of Finance makes a final decision, we'll have to probably call a special board meeting and just approve it, right?
Yeah. So the plan is then that I will present the changes, the known changes,
Right.
and any mitigating strategies that we think we'll be able to implement.
Right.
So we'll have our discussion. Our next meeting, I think, is scheduled for the 11th or so of
Right.
March. So we'll present that then, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
So the goal is to go into the Board of Finance, presenting the budget as approved.
As approved, with what you think are, with the concerns that you have, both positive, for things that you are confident are going to be moving, right? I think you have to give them a heads up and what the impact might be.
Okay. All right. So that's going to be on the 7th. You want to do that
Yeah.
on the 7th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll do that. But just with a caveat with that is that if things become a little bit clearer, I may be presenting items to the Board of Finance before I present to the board. So I'm not quite sure.
We can always call a special meeting of the board.
Okay.
So why don't you, between now and as we get closer to the 7th, just let me know if we need to, and then we could always call a special meeting if we have to.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
I would be in support of that. I don't want something going forward to finance without the board. The board
Yeah.
needs to know.
Yeah.
We can
Yep.
certainly arrange that.
Yeah, if there are things that you know for certain that are going to impact the budget, then we should
Yeah.
have a special meeting and reapprove. If there aren't, if these are things that are still moving parts, right, that you don't know for certain, I don't mind that. But if there's stuff that you actually say, yeah, this is definite, this is more or less baked in, then we should do that.
Yeah, I think by the 7th, everything will still be moving. Nothing will be final by the 7th.
Well, let's take this off. Let's
We'll talk some more about it.
yeah, let's talk some more about it.
Yeah.
And potentially we can also, when we have our weekly meeting, our leadership team meeting with Lisa weekly, we can use some of that time to talk about what we want to do as well.
Fair
Our
enough.
Monday meeting. Okay.
That's fair. That's all the updates that I have at this point.
Okay. Approval of last, any other questions or comments or other business? No. Okay. Approval of the January meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the January minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from the January meeting.
Can I have a second?
A second.
Any comments or proposed changes? No? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion passes. Minutes approved. I think that's it for the agenda for today. Thank you. Have a nice weekend, everyone. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
A second?
A second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
day.
You too.